right now, we're going to be talking with Jim Wahlberg. He's the executive director of the Mark Wahlberg Youth Foundation, also a film producer, speaker, podcaster, author, and he's here to talk to us, among other things, his new book, The Big Hustle, a Boston Street Kid's story of addiction and redemption. Jim, you got a lot going on. Thanks for being with us.
Well, we got nothing but time on our hands now, so we got plenty of time to do things like write books, I guess.
Maybe if you could start off by telling us what made you decide to write this book at this particular time in your life.
I mean, to be honest, I think that it's been something that I've thought of over the years, and I've been approached a couple of times about writing the book. I just felt like the time was right. I felt like, the place that I am in my life and in my faith and with my family, and the fact that, I spend a good amount of my time out speaking and telling my story anyways.
Yeah.
It's not, most of what is in the book has been, pieces of it are all over the place. Now he's going to bring it together in one place at one time.
Yeah. And talk about that too, because as you said, you speak about your story all over the country. What was it like to put it down in a book form?
So I spent 5 days with a writer.
Yeah.
And we met up in Massachusetts, and we went, and I just took him around, and I showed him my childhood homes. I showed him prisons that I was in. I showed him places that I was homeless, that I slept, places that, the place I had my first drink at the tender age of 8 years old. Like and so basically what I did was I told him my story, and we recorded it, and then he had it transcribed, and then we had it. And so sort of we just wanted to figure out in what order would we tell this story. It's not really the kind of a story that you tell from the beginning to the end, So we had to find a place to start. And of course, there really is no end, right? Because the work continues, my life continues, my journey with Christ continues. But reading it, sitting with it and reading it, it made me uncomfortable at certain points. Yeah. It made me very emotional at other points. And I read it probably 5 times as we edited it again and moved things around. And each time I read it in a single sitting, right? And I don't know if that's because, I'm hearing my own voice tell my own story to me. I know the story. I know what's on the next page, but I couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
Right? It was a great reminder of some of the things that I don't think about all the time, or that I don't talk about all the time. And I think about what it's like I have children, right? To look at a 12-year-old and think, I was homeless, yeah, running the streets at 12 years old. And then I look at a 12-year-old and I'm like, how is this possible? How did I survive this?
Yeah.
But God was merciful to me, and I get to be almost 55 years old, and I get to share that story with the world.
Great. And there's a poignant part in your story. Your second stint in jail, had the opportunity to be in a mass with Saint Mother Teresa. If you could talk about that experience, maybe how that started to lead you in the right direction, lead you out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think before I talk about my experience with Mother Teresa, I have to talk about my experience with Father Jim Freitas,
sure,
right? Yeah. So Father Jim Freitas was the chaplain at MCI Concord. He's the guy. He's the guy that brought me. He hustled me. I thought I was hustling him to get this job in the chapel, and ultimately he was trying to bring me home to the faith, right? And I wasn't working there more than a couple of weeks, and he tells me, we got a visitor coming. And I'm like, really, who? And he's like, oh, Mother Teresa is coming. And I'm like, that's awesome. Who's Mother Teresa, right? And I'm a good Catholic boy growing up in Boston. I didn't even know who she was, right? You have to live under a rock not to know who Mother Teresa was at that point, right? And so I'll tell you that many people try to sort of find that one defining moment in their life, right? And seeing her, I saw true humility, I think, for the first time in my life. I feel like, you know, in hindsight, I feel like God was showing off to me personally, right? Because I always felt like he was there. He was after me. He wanted me to come home to him, but I couldn't because I was afraid. I was afraid that, you know, because I was brought up with God's going to get you, right? And that's not don't do that, folks. If you're watching the show, don't threaten your children, okay? Because God is all loving, right? And he's merciful. And if we don't know that as children, if we don't know that he's our Father, then that's a disservice. And so seeing her refuse to go up on the stage, which was the altar in the gymnasium at MCI Concord, seeing her instead say, no, I'm going to stay here on the floor on my knees with these inmates, I feel like I felt like at that moment I was looking at the face of God. Wow. And honestly, when I say I feel like God was showing off, it was like, I'm going to send my number one assistant. You're not hearing me. You're not getting it. So I'm going to send my number one assistant right now to you personally. And I don't know what effect it had on anyone else, because there were hundreds and hundreds of people there that day. But I can go back, and that is the defining moment. That was the moment that next day I went back to Father Jim Freitas and said, I want to learn more about my faith. I want to make my confirmation, because I hadn't made my confirmation. So at 22 years old, after that experience, I made my confirmation in state prison.
Wow, that's great. It's an amazing story, Jim. I wish we had more time. I wanted to just ask you about, I know you got a movie coming out, just quickly, if you could tell us about that.
So the film is called What About the Kids? And it is, you know, it's my 12th film on addiction, but it's my first faith-based film. It's a Catholic movie about addiction. It's a Catholic family's journey through addiction. And we shot it down in Florida, in Miami. We had the Archbishop of Miami's in the film, Thomas Wensky. We shot 99% of the film on Holy Catholic property, right? And we had priests on set every day. We had access, we had daily mass, we had access to the Blessed Sacrament daily. I really wanted to take the steps. When I said I want to make a faith-based film and I want it to be God-centered, then I knew I had to take those steps in order for that to be the case.
That's great. The book is called The Big Hustle, a Boston Street Kid's Story of Addiction and Redemption. If people want to find out more, Jim, about the book, about the movie itself, what are the best ways to do that?
Okay, so they can go on Amazon, and it's on pre-order right now. It comes out August 7th, which is next Friday. You can visit Our Sunday Visitors website, and both projects were done with Our Sunday Visitors, which is a great Catholic publisher. And the film comes out in September.
Great.
And we're very excited about it.
Well, thanks so much.
It's an educational tool. We're using it as an educational tool. We're not looking to make money. We're looking to educate families.
Sure, yeah.
And the faithful and our priests, right?
Yeah.
I mean, faithful families, anything goes wrong at home, they go to their priest. Well, our priests need to be armed with the facts and armed with some tools about where one can go to get some help.
Yeah. Great talking with you, Jim. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.